Welcome to the Lions Den. My name is P. Andre Wilson, and I'm glad to have you here with us on today. I have the distinct privilege of hosting today, and I want to acknowledge the brainchild, the CEO, the head woman in charge. I started to use another one, but I'm going to say head woman in charge, Miss Lydia Chapman. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to host the first Lions Den segment for 2024. So happy New Year to everyone. Today's segment is entitled Let Freedom Ring. And I have two guests that will be along with me, Stephen Harris and Charlie Taylor Jr. They will be able to introduce themselves in just a moment. So like and share, and we'll be right back in a few moments. Let's enter into the Lions Den. Well, we're back to have a conversation here in the Lions Den, and I think that it will be an appropriate conversation. Again, we ask that you like and share, and also feel free to comment, chime in with us as we talk about this thematic focus of letting freedom ring. Let freedom ring. So again, today I have the privilege of having two dear brothers with me, Stephen Harris and Charlie Taylor Jr. I have a long-standing relationship with both of these brothers. I've known both of them probably about the same amount of time, and it's a privilege and honor to have them with me. I don't have the privilege of always talking to them every week or every month. However, when we do pick back up, it is a blessing to have fellowship with them. And that's the power of relationship. You don't have to talk every day or see each other every day in order to have a camaraderie and a meaningful relationship. So, brothers, I want to introduce you to the Lions Den. Stephen, this is your first time, but Charlie Taylor Jr. has been here with me before, and hopefully it won't be your last time, Stephen. So take a moment just to introduce yourself with us on today. Good morning to both of you.
Hello, and I'm glad to be on. Good to see you both.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
Steve Harris. I've known Andre for over 20 years.
Wow.
And I work at Sinai Hospital, working in the Cancer Institute. So Andre and I, we kind of work in the same area.
Yes, sir.
And I've been blessed being able to have a friend who I can call a brother, and just to be able to meet Charlie Taylor at one time. And it's just been a blessing to know the both of you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Charlie Taylor Jr., good morning, sir.
Good morning, and thank you for having me today in
Yes,
the
sir.
Lions Den. Steve, it's a pleasure seeing you again. And Bro Wilson,
Yes, sir.
there's never a dull moment with you.
No,
You
sir.
always sparking things in my spirit, as my grandmother would say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Evoke things, wake up things to cause one to engage in a critical fashion. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. So I don't want to belabor the time. I want to jump right in. So today's encounter, our thematic focus is entitled Let Freedom Ring. So let's give a working definition for the word freedom, and then we'll go into the segments. Freedom, by definition, Mr. Webster suggests, is the power or right to act, speak, or think as one desires without hindrance or restraint. So the first segment is free to grow. Gentlemen, I think at a certain point in our life, it's 2024. And I think if there were ever a time for us to look at areas in our life that needs growth, areas in our life that we need to work on as it pertains to evolving, as it pertains to growing, now is the time. And so I gave you the definition for freedom. This first segment is entitled Free to Grow. So let's look at it from this standpoint. As men, what are areas in your life that you feel like it's time to start confronting in order to grow? Because all too often we are sometimes hindered, and the reason we're hindered is not necessarily people nearly as it's an issue that we're hindered because it's us. Unfortunately, people will co-sign to us on our behalf because we're really our own holdup. I'm going to go back to that part a little later as to being our own holdup. But as it pertains to our growth, what are some areas in your life that you feel like, hey, man, I really got to start focusing on this area? Stephen, help us out.
For me, it'd be my mental stability. That's very important, because if I'm not right here, I can't grow. I can't be a help to my family. I can't be a help to my friends. So for me, it's the mentality part of being able to be in the right frame of mind, having a mindset to where I know my limits, instead of trying to think the old-fashioned way that a man can do anything and everything. That's not true. So
Yes,
for me, it's just be the mindset. Make sure that I am in that right frame of mind, so that I can be a help to myself first, then be a help to others. And by me doing that, I will grow more into who I am, not who I think I am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Charlie Taylor, how about you, man?
I don't want to go behind him.
Come on, let's talk.
Steve, I support you and I agree with you. One of the priorities is for that freedom is to make sure that your mental health is in order, so you can have the capacity to make good decisions, to make sound decisions for you and yours. More importantly, like you said, for yourself, because coming out of a pandemic, I mean, our society, at least from my perspective, we have never been in a pandemic before. And coming out of a pandemic, we had to adjust to so many things. And sometimes when we were confined in a environment that had us following certain rules, certain procedures, certain processes, you did not have the freedom. You weren't able to do what you want to do. And sometimes it had an effect on you until we came out of it. And when we came out of it, for me, when I came out of it, I had to start to make better adjustments because a lot of this is new for me. Now I'm coming out of a pandemic, and life, the way I used to know it, has changed.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree? Life has changed.
Yes.
And I am trying to make sure I don't stay, for a better word, because those of us who like cartoons, I don't want to continue to be Fred Flintstone.
That's right.
I'm ready to progress. I really would like to be that George Jetson kind of guy. So a lot of changes have taken place. Yeah. So mental stability and adjustments. Those are the two things that I've gotten from those experiences to make sure that I stay liberated in my thinking, in my processing, and so on. Yeah.
Here's another thing, though, along with what you were saying. Let's go before the pandemic. A lot of times when it came to man trying to grow into being a man, whenever there was an issue or concern, they always like to blame someone else. Some men do. It got to a point where as you're growing and you start to you get the tools, you get the instruments from your parents, they teach you how to do this and do that. But
Yes,
when you
sir.
get older, you get on your own, things start happening. First thing you want to do is you want to blame your parents for something that you got yourself into. You want to blame either your girlfriend, you want to blame someone else. You don't want to take the blame for what you have done. So before the pandemic, that was a thing that I saw in a lot of young men who around 18, 25, they want to blame someone else for the mistake that they made instead of own up, man up, as we would call it, to the mistake that they made. And that was something that kind of, I know some people who are in their 40s and 50s and they're still blaming people because they haven't really taken a look at, hey, I did this, not my mother, not my father, not my girlfriend, or not my wife. I did this. So they want to consistently blame others. So that's another thing. We got to come out of that and realize I messed up. Now, my thing is don't beat yourself up. If you mess up, now do what you got to do to get it right. Whether you got to seek counsel, whether you got to go, whatever route it is, do what you got to do so that you can get back in place. Reinvent yourself. That's the problem. That's what we need to do. Reinvent ourselves. And if we can do that, coming out of all of that struggle that we've had down through the years, you will be a better man. You will be able to do what you need to do. You will grow. You will be more mature. But we got to stop doing the blame game. That's got to stop it.
So, brothers, one of the things that I hear you saying, and this is good. When you see me looking down, it's because I have a pen in my hand and I'm taking notes. One of the things that was first mentioned, Stephen, you talked about your mind, and I think a lot of times the challenge is we don't have self-reflection. We don't have self-reflection. You were talking about excuses and various things such as that. I think the greatest thing that any man, not just man, I'm sure women will eavesdrop on the conversation. The greatest thing for any of us to do, but more specifically to our brothers, is to take an internal assessment of ourselves. A lot of times what challenges growth is failing to look at self. Stephen, you just mentioned we look at everybody else. We blame the system. We blame the quote unquote man. But the question is, when do we take an internal assessment to see where we are at fault? It's easy to shift blame. And as long as we're always looking outward and never taking an internal look, we'll never grow from where we are.
Right.
It is important for us to note that becoming is always greater than being. And I think too many times, brothers, we hold ourselves up to our last mistake. We hold ourselves up hostage to our last failure, what we didn't accomplish, what we didn't get right, what relationship we may have messed up. And that's where we're left, failing to realize we don't have to be our last mistake, even if people continue to reference us by the mistake. I don't have to be in a place of my last failure, even though some folk won't see you beyond your failure. It is important for us to understand, as it relates to this growth, we have to move beyond where we are and not get comfortable. That's why I always say becoming is always greater than being. And then that whole issue of expanding the capacity of our thinking. Do we want more than what we already have? Do we want to go beyond where we are? And I think that that's one of the greatest things that a brother can do is to grow up. Stephen, you said something, and as soon as you said it, here's what I heard. Get off the crutches. Everything, you don't need a crutch. I didn't have this. I didn't have that. They did this. Crutches. At what point do we put the crutches down? and move beyond. Some things are reality. Some things may be very true as it relates to what has been done. But we got to get beyond what was or what is or who is and grow. Because here's the sad indictment. And I think that all of us are over 21. All of us are over 31. All of us are over 41. We can stop. On here. The reality is this. Growing old is not an indication that we are growing up. And a lot of people, a lot of men grow old every year, but don't grow up. And you can tell a man that grows up by the character changes that are demonstrated in his life. You can tell a man that is growing up by the challenges that man challenges himself with, or the challenges that he pursues. You can tell a man is growing up when that man can truly look at himself and say, you know what? I don't like where I am. I don't like who I am. And not use a crutch or have arrogance to say, well, this is me. And no, there are some things as men that we have to stop.
Yes.
Let me monitor my words. As men, we have to leave the crutches and excuses and grow up. Because yes, within us, the immaturity, I'll say the lad in us, I'll call immaturity the lad in us. That lad in us, that child, when I was a child, still want to resurface. Mm-hmm. But when I became a man, mm-hmm. and becoming a man is not just by a semblance of or an acknowledgement of age. That's not a man. True. Becoming a man is a daily fight, a daily journey. Every day I have to make the choice to become a man. Not that my stature eliminates me, facial hair, voice eliminates me.
Yeah, you're on it.
But my granddaddy said, you're going to be a man. Act like a man.
That's right.
And so we have to act our age, because it's a negative indictment to be an adult, but we still have childlike behavior governing us.
Wow. When
your age suggests that you live in an adult world that requires you to be an adult. So
that's one of the struggles, and I agree with you, Dre. I agree with you, because that manhood, by definition, it says it's the state or the period of growing as a man, mm-hmm. being a man rather than being a child.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Just paraphrasing what you just said, and some of the things as you and Steve alluded, when you look at man-like behavior, you see one who goes through self-reflection, mm-hmm. trying to understand who I am, how can I be better, how can I improve, yes. knowing my value, period, at the moment, versus those childlike behaviors, blaming the situation, lack of ownership, lack of accountability. Yes. So when you see that happening, of course, those are childlike behaviors. And that's part of the challenge of being a man versus being a child.
Yes, sir.
You're free to grow, but if you're not growing here, you're challenged.
Right. Stalled. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
You're challenged. The blame game. When you said that, Steve, I was like, man.
Yeah. Because I think one of the interesting things, and I'm glad Steve said that, we are not negating that there are certain realities that are there. Mm-hmm. Some of us, if we fall in that category, are not having a man to show us how to be a man. Some of us are in categories where we had things stacked up against us. So that is not a denial. However, at what point do we move beyond the limitations that we sometimes place on ourselves because of a lack of male presence, because of a lack of encouragement, or whatever the issue is? Here's the thing that I think every man needs to understand. No matter what your background is, no matter what your past is, no matter what your failure is, and brothers that may be watching this and may watch the replay at a later date, no matter where you've been, no matter where you've messed up, no matter what you've done, understand, good men are not born. They're developed. And every day I am being molded and developed into a good man. Because one thing that I think all of us should never forget or act like we have some type of amnesia, we are not exempt from falling into the failure of being a bad man. Because here's the truth. In the best of us, there's some bad. And in the worst of us, there's some good. It all depends on what we choose to nurture. So every day I am learning that I have to nurture the good man in me, because the bad man in me always want to take reign and rule. And so brothers who have been through some failures and past and things you're not so proud of, you cannot allow that to leave you stuck from growing beyond that.
That's right.
Because as God is God and his breath is in our body, every day we have an opportunity to grow into the man that we may desire to be, grow into the man that we may not have had as a model in us. And so I just wanted to interject that there to say, you know, I don't care what your past, I don't care what you've done. All of us have the ability to do the very thing we demonize. All of us have the ability to become the very person that we don't really care for because of their behavior. We're not exempt. But I think that men have to take under consideration, don't abort your growth. Because too many times people abort their growth. And go ahead, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just thinking on tomorrow, so the Ravens will play Kansas City. And I'm using this illustration to support what you just said. There are times we make mistakes. And because we do make mistakes, just like the football team, they might make mistakes. But it's very important as men, not children, but as men, we learn to make adjustments. So when life hits you real good, just like that team might be whacking you out, tearing you up, take a moment so you can make those adjustments.
Yes, sir.
So you won't be that last failure. So you won't make that same, hopefully, quote unquote, hopefully you won't make that same mistake. Did y'all like that illustration?
I love it.
Go Ravens.
Because I'm going to add on to that. So being as though you make a mistake, say you miss a pass, you know, a receiver, what he has to do is now he has to say, oh God, I missed a pass. But he got to go right back in that huddle. And then he may be given another shot. And he'd be like, I got to forget about that pass. I got to continue to move forward. I got to press forward. I got to push forward because another ball might be coming my way. So
he said, give it back.
Forward, because this is going to be the one that may break it. This may be the one that changes everything. So we have to remember sometimes certain things, we have to forget it right then and there. And I always, when I talk to young people, I always tell them this: press forward, push forward, keep moving forward. You made a mistake. Okay. Don't beat yourself up. Keep it moving. Because when you get cut, when you get cut or you get stuck, you stay in that for a while. You'll waddle in it for years. But no, don't do that. Okay, own up the mistake, keep it moving. That's how the players play. They do that all the time. They get right back up, run into the huddle, do what they got to do. You get stuck. You might get hit at the right at the line of scrimmage. You know what that running back do? He go right back in that huddle. He may break one. It may take some time, but he'll break one. And you will not remember that one where he got stuck right there at the scrimmage line, because he kept going. He kept moving forward, and he's making progress. That's how we have to think sometimes.
Yes, sir. And as quiet as this kept, a lot of times we are our own worst enemy.
Yes.
Why?
because we live in regret too much, and then living in regret can turn into living in dysfunction.
Mhm.
And so, come on, Coach Harris. Ladies and gentlemen, as we entered into the Lions Den, I need to retract a statement. I said that I was welcoming brothers Stephen Harris and Charlie Taylor, but I want to reintroduce them. Coach Harris and Coach Charlie Taylor are with us today, and we're here to motivate you brothers to understand that there is something in you that you have to nurture and grow. Don't drop the baby. Allow that baby to grow. I don't want to get stuck here, brothers. This is really good, and I've been taking notes, but I want to move to the next topic of conversation under this Let Freedom Ring. Freedom to speak up. I think a lot of us have fallen into the category of having our voices taken away for a couple reasons. One, intimidation.
Mhm.
So the times that we need to speak up and speak out, it's the silence of the lambs. You have people who have become accustomed to going along just to be along, so they're not rejected from the circle. You have situations where people have silenced their voice simply because they don't want to shake the table.
Mhm.
So I'll agree just to avoid being considered unagreeable. Why do you think it is important to speak up? Because here's the problem. There are times where silence is golden. Got it. There are times when some things you just got to have no comment. However, there are other times when you have to learn to exercise your freedom to speak. It's just like in a marital celebration. They'll say, speak now or forever hold your peace. Too often, we are forever holding our peace. And people feel like if I speak up, that's going to interrupt peace. No, if I speak up, that's valuing that I have a voice. And so help us out. Why do you think it's necessary to speak up?
I believe, gentlemen, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just believe some people just don't know their value. Some men just don't know their value. And in 2024, 2023, I guess I started to change. A lot of times when what I bring to the table, I bring life experiences. I bring wisdom. I bring seeing over 60 years of watching days. I've seen more days than most, and because I've seen more days, I've seen more things, so I can give you more resolve to the things that I have seen. I mean, you don't have to use them all. It's like eating fish, throwing away the bones. I mean, that's what folks say. But I think at times we don't hold or share our own value. But in 23 and 24, let me tell you about Charlie Taylor Jr. If there's a book in that special book, it says, "Do not cast your pearls to swines."
That's right.
Okay, so if I'm sharing information with you, if I'm sharing you good information, and you choose not to receive it, so the next time you may not get a pearl, you might get a wood pellet. I'm just saying, you may not get a pearl, you might get a wood pellet. But I know I have value, and just to piggyback a little bit on that conversation about free to grow, we have to offer ourselves grace too. We got to offer ourselves grace, but that's how I feel about freedom to speak. We got to know our value. You got to know your worth and speak your truth tactfully. So it's on your palate in such a way folk can receive your truth. You just can't be malpracticing, hurting people and stuff, but got to know your value. I'm sorry. Am I talking
And
too much? My bad.
no. And I was thinking, when you were talking about that, it's like, right, some people will say things and have no filter. You got to have a filter so people will listen to you. But
Let
one
me
thing
speak.
about, I'll be honest, one thing about a man, when it comes to speaking his mind, a lot of times, some men, not all, some men need a safe environment before they speak their mind. Because first of all, they'll feel as though you're going to use that against them in a way that will destroy them later.
You got that,
So
Wilson.
if you do that, if they're thinking that, they're not going to say anything. They're going to just, like you were saying, Andre, go with the flow. Just not to try to cause no waves. But like you were saying, Charlie, it's true. That is true. We have to do that, but there has to be that kind of environment so that they're able to. Now, there's some men who, they're just going to speak their mind no matter what.
Mhm.
Some men will be tactful, some men will not. But I just think, when it comes to, depending on the environment, okay, I feel as though men should be able to have a conversation with their spouse and not feel as though it's going to bite them in the butt later.
Mhm.
Because your spouse has your back.
Mhm.
She's supposed to. She should be your best friend. She
Amen.
should be your confidant. She should be the one you can tell secrets and it will not get out.
Absolutely.
But there are some people who are in relationships where it's not like that.
Right. Mhm.
So you can kind of see the man like he's battered, beat down because he won't say much. Yes, dear. No, dear.
Mhm.
But it should be a safe environment when you're talking to your spouse. Now, when you're out in the business world, the church world, whatever the case may be, yes, you still need to have a filter, but it should, even if you don't have a safe environment, if you are worth something, knowing your worth, like Charlie was saying,
Mhm.
no matter how safe or unsafe it is, you're gonna do what you got to do to protect that person that you are,
Mhm.
and you're gonna say what you need to say in a tactful way to let people know, hey, I'm not a pushover. I am who I am. I'm bringing something, whether it makes a difference or not. I'm bringing something to the table. Charlie, you said wisdom. You also have knowledge. You also have understanding. We all need that.
You know, I
Thank you,
I'm
Steve.
sitting here, as I said, I'm writing notes and I'm listening because this conversation today it's very empowering and there's a lot of wisdom here, applicable to life. One of the things that I wrote down is, as Charlie was saying things in a tactful manner. My mama used to say, "Taste your words
Mm.
before you
I like
speak
your
your words."
mama. I
Yeah.
like your mama.
And here's what my mama said: "Taste your words before you speak your words, because if your words are not going to taste good to others, then if you swallow those same words, they're not going to taste
Mhm.
good to you." And so sometimes people feel as if, and we see this in authority figures a lot. I can say what I want to say, and I don't care how you feel.
Yeah.
And you can be very right and very wrong at the same time.
Mhm.
And so I think it's one of those things we have to start, as the Bible say, season your speech with grace.
Mhm.
And so it is very necessary because sometimes our tongue don't have no kind of seasoning to it.
Oh,
Mhm.
It
oh,
is very, y'all know the scriptures. The
Mhm.
tongue, this little thing here, it's lethal. It'll do what bullets cannot do.
That's right.
ouch.
And so it is so necessary to make sure that we're very tactful. that when we're talking, we consider somebody else's feelings, because some of us in society, people don't care about people's feelings. I said what I said and I meant what I said. And that's that has some semblance of truth to it. But saying what you say and meaning what you say, if it's not said in the right way, if it's not said in a manner where you're putting yourself in the shoes as the recipient, as it's being said to you. Now, at the end of the day, there's some people, because, you know, there's another variable to this. They don't want you to speak up, and there's that intimidation. So they can speak to you in an unjust manner, but you can't defend yourself about not allowing them to speak to you any kind of way. And so there's two sides of this equation. And I think so many, again, have lost their voice because they're used to people saying anything that they want to say out their mouth, and they forever hold their peace. And there's a way to put people, I don't know, my mama's on me now, to put people in their place. And you don't have to be disorderly. You don't have to be lewd. You don't have to be dysfunctional. You don't have to be any or disrespectful. Now, people may take it as respect, but there comes a time where you stop bowing your head in the sand like an ostrich and say, hey, listen, I have a voice too.
Right.
Sometimes, and we see this in relationships, we see this in the workplace, we see this in society. Sometimes a person is trying to speak louder than the other person. And it's one of the challenges that, especially with relationships, there's a lot of going along. There's a lot of going along to get along. So we are ace boom coon.
Not at 60, baby. Not at 60.
Whatever.
Not at 60.
and
maybe at 40, but not at 60.
Right there. Not at this stage in my life. I have to learn to speak up because there are so many relational injustices. And we see stuff that we need to confront and say something about, but sometimes we don't say anything about it. It can happen in the marital state. Everybody's not married. Like I said, relationally. I don't care if it's your friend, your coworker, relationally. And we silence our voice. We swallow. We don't say something. And at a certain point, we cannot talk about dysfunction. We can't complain. We can't vent to our homeboy. Like I said, some ladies probably watching. Our homegirl. We can't cry and pout if we don't never speak up.
Yeah.
Silence hosts dysfunction. So we can't talk about what happens to everybody but the person that need to hear. I don't like the way this went down. I don't like the way this is happening. You're not going to disrespect me. Okay, again, going back to that mama mistake. Who do you think you're talking to? I ain't one of your little friends. That's what my check yourself before you wreck yourself. And then Stephen was talking about that safe environment. That is something that a lot of men are suffering with.
That's a good point, Steve.
Don't have a safe environment. Like, who do you have in your life where you can call and everything may not be King James vernacular?
Right.
But you can talk to them and they won't judge you by what you said, judge you by how you feel, but understand right now, they need to hear me.
Yeah.
Listening to them. They need to be heard. And so, Steve, I'm glad you said that, man. We need a safe environment where we can be vulnerable. And I don't think a lot of brothers have that safe environment where there's vulnerability, where you can say, hey, I feel like I'm going to give up, and not be met with, why you feel that way? I didn't say I am going to give up. I said I feel. There's a distinction between I am giving up or I feel like giving up. That safe place is so necessary because we see so many issues with suicide. We see so many, like, and I don't think people understand this. Just because you didn't hang yourself, you didn't pull a trigger, you didn't take or pop some pills, you can commit suicide in your mind. Physically, you still alive.
Mm-hmm.
You existing, but you're not living. And it's one of those things where, what do we do to cultivate a safe place where men can say, you know what, this is where I am. This is what I'm dealing with. This is what I feel like I feel like I'm on the ledge with this. Not on the ledge with like jumping off, but mentally, emotionally, I feel like I'm on the ledge. I got questions that I don't have answers to, whatever the situation is. And one of the things that I'm learning, the value of making sure we create, especially in relationships. I'm tired of relationships suffering because people feel like I really can't say how I'm really doing. I really can't open up because
It's a dangerous place.
right. I don't want you to use what I say against me. Charlie, you just said it, man. It's a dangerous place.
It's a dangerous place.
You're not safe.
One of the things that you asked, one of the initial questions you asked, and Steve came out the gate with it. I need to work on my mental health, and I supported him. I support him. Yes, I need to work on. I got to make sure everything up here is okay. Mm-hmm. And when you silence me, whether you're my mate, my brother, whatever relationship that's in, and I can't be me because I have concern, I have fear because the space is not safe. Are you going to punish me later on because I said because I said how I really felt?
Yeah.
We definitely need to understand how to use our voice in the environment, in a safe environment, and exercise that wisdom so we can get the outcomes that's needed to make sure that we're whole. That's how I feel.
And it's one of those things where, again, we need to determine where our voice need to be heard.
Where?
Yeah, where? What categories? What circumstances and situations? Case in point, there's a denomination that this past week had a gathering. And because they had a gathering, this was the first time that this was a joint denomination across the board, and they had a woman to preach. And because they had a woman to preach, who is a phenomenal preacher, Dr. Dina Stewart is a phenomenal preacher. Just phenomenal. I love her ministry. But because she was preaching amongst these group of men, they felt the need to shut down and not support her. And then there was some other variables. What made me scratch my head was a lot of the people that were supposed to be supportive didn't speak up on her behalf. Not the fact that she was met with resistance. She was already at the stage. She was already preaching. But the reality is the treatment she got, and you were at the table and didn't speak up. But yet you say she's a mentor, yet you say she's a friend, yet you say she's just someone there. I cannot sit at a table and allow something to be said that's going to tarnish or an attempt to destroy somebody that I say I love. Because the question is, how do people feel so free to say stuff in our presence? And we're comfortable with not speaking up. So I cannot allow, in that case, so you had various people opening up that were defending her because of what was said and what the malicious acts that were done. And so that's one of the things, again, I think that is so important. If I say I love Steve, if I say I love Charlie, I'm not going to sit at a table where Steve and Charlie are being torn limb from limb.
That's right.
Sit there because other people at the table that I may have a relationship with and I don't want to offend them. No, if I say I have a voice, if you're gonna stand up, speak up.
And I'm coming for you. Let me
right,
find out you didn't. Let me find out you didn't say anything, and you was. I'm sorry. We're being recorded.
Keep it real. Look, keep it
Let me find out
it's
we right
true.
there, and you didn't say anything. We're gonna have a problem.
And
We're gonna see why you so stuck.
You should have there should be a problem with any form of injustice that is done. I don't care if it's injustice in the workplace, speak up. I don't care if it's injustice or in relationships, speak up. I don't care if it's injustice in church. There are things that happen in church and people sit there and the child number, that don't have nothing to do with me. No, it does have something to do with me because this is my brother or this is my sister in Christ. And I am not going to sit by and zip in my mouth. There's a time to speak. There's a time to be silent. But when it's the time to speak, that is not the time to all of a sudden become mute. Okay, we got to hasten here. This is listen.
That's the truth. That's the
This
truth.
is true. Steve, I'm gonna let you go ahead and tap into the rest of that if you want to say something, and then we're gonna go to the last segment.
Nah, you hit the head with that. But I do want to say this though. One problem, another problem with all that we're discussing on that note is that you don't have enough men who are willing to listen.
Yes, sir.
Too many just say what they want to say, like you were talking about. But we need people that really want to or willing to listen. We have a problem being consistently inconsistent.
Yeah.
We need to listen.
Help us.
Sometimes if you just listen, and I'm learning this more and more, and I'm gonna say this, I'm learning more to be a listener when it comes to really anything, because when you listen to someone and they're talking and they're telling you something, whether they're gonna be transparent or even if they're not transparent, if you listen, a lot of times you can hear what the problem is. They'll give you their problem and then give you the answer too. Telling you the problem, but they'll give you the answer too, because they're really just letting things go, saying what's on their mind. So when you listen to someone, they have an issue. As they continue talking, you can kind of see that, yeah, there's an issue, but then I just heard the answer in what you just said to me. That happens.
Yes.
We need to listen more, and not just always want to jump to conclusions to say what's on your mind. I honestly believe if we take that approach and not try to always give our opinion, things would be better in our conversations as men.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about men now.
Yes, sir.
We're talking amongst each other.
Yes, sir.
And we can, if you're talking to me, Charlie, and Andre, you're talking to me, and you're saying things that we're discussing, whether it be one-on-one, whatever the case may be, I shouldn't always want to try to give my opinion. I need to listen to what you're saying. That is something that we really should push and work on. That even should be in the school system, learning to listen to these young people. It make it easier to help them out.
Yes.
Or for us men, we need to make it easier for us to help each other out.
Yes. Yes. So, brothers, we're narrowing down to the last segment. This has been very, very powerful.
I didn't know I was going to write that many notes.
Bro, listen, I have a whole bunch of notes right here.
I'm sorry.
Reflection and a whole lot. So
we're supposed to be guests, not guest speakers. I'm jotting notes like I can't even speak that. I can't even write that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's good because there's a synergy. We're flowing, and we're not competing. We're complementing. So the last thing is free to move on. I want to say this. There are some situations as it pertains to moving on. We need to understand we cannot get stuck in certain situations. We can't get stuck. Did we say it was 2024? It's 2024. We are another year old. As a man that is I've already entered into my 42nd year of living. There's some things I cannot allow myself to remain stuck. And so often as men, we stuck. Our mobility is hindered. And sometimes we have to look at why our mobility is hindered. Now, there are two reasons why many of times we're stuck. Either it's because our mobility is hindered, or I won't say reasons why we need to move on. Moving on is necessary. Let's just stop right there and say moving on is necessary. It's necessary so we don't become stuck. But then here's the other part that I was trying to get to. Sometimes we're moving on not necessarily because we desire to. Sometimes we're moving on because we're forced to move on. And in 2024, it is no needing staying where you're not welcomed any longer. It is no need in us staying in relationships, staying stuck to a false sense of loyalty. Sometimes we got to make the decision. You know what? I'm free to move on. I've tried. I'm in this situation, but this situation is not going anywhere. I'm in a relationship. This relationship is not going anywhere. I need to move on. Some folk are stuck at a job and they've hit the ceiling and don't like where they are, but won't put an application in so they can move on. So give me your, oh boy. Brother,
man, don't be talking about me. I'm right here, man. Don't do that.
Oh, no. Listen, I've been hit a couple times tonight, but we got 8 minutes. Let's narrow this down. What would you say about moving on, Steve, and giving yourself the freedom that you can move on?
I'm going right back to where I started. It's here.
Yeah.
In order for me to move on, this got to be right.
Yeah.
If I don't get that right, I can't move on. I will get stuck. So how do we get out of being stuck? Reinvent yourself. Look at where you are at the moment and see what changes need to be made. Maybe there's some situations that you got going on that has caused you to be so caught up in this one lane that you can't get out of. You might want to reevaluate that situation.
Yes, sir.
Know whether to cut it or stay in it. Personally, I'd rather just cut it. And something that I've been doing for a while is doing self-reflection.
Yeah. I
do that because I don't want to get stuck. Right. And honestly, to be transparent, sometimes I do get stuck. I get too stuck. And it's almost like I'm don't know which way to go. So do I drop it all, or do I really take a reevaluation of the whole situation? Usually I do that. I reevaluate the whole thing and see, like, well, do I need to get rid of that, or do I get rid of all of it? So my mindset is I'm going back to that. That's where I go to figure out, am I in this place too long? And if I'm in it too long, it's time to drop it. It really is.
Yes.
So I don't like being stuck in one place. It doesn't feel good. Feel good at all. Consistently being inconsistent with what you're trying to do to get someplace. No.
I just told you I'm on the line, man.
Help us, Charlie. What this moving on piece?
I was just trying to be as transparent as I could in that moment, because, man, Steve got to be a life coach. I mean, you just got to be a life coach, because when you talk about self-reflection, I had to, oh my God, I had a couple other things in between, but when he hit self-reflection, I had to actually say to myself, man, you need to deal with your vanity.
Yeah.
You need to deal with your vanity, because when you do that self-reflection, you should know as a man that adjustments need to be made.
Mm-hmm.
You should know as a man that there are some lanes that you in, not that you have to get out the lane,
Mhm.
or maybe you should get out the lane.
Mm-hmm.
That's when that vanity question popped back in. That's why I kept telling y'all better leave me alone. You know I'm on this talk with y'all. Y'all just
You
can't be
just
treating
talking,
me any
brother.
old kind of way. But when I began to deal with my vanity, being a spiritual creature, I realized, hey, if you can see that, if your higher power is revealing that to you, maybe your adjustments is what you should seek, Charlie. Yeah, you free to move. I don't want to get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm in a situation where I am unable to change a situation, I see I see uh, roads for change. In
Yes.
my situation, I see roads for change when other people share. So when you mention listening, Steve, when you mentioned listening, bro, I was taking some notes. I'm like, man, um, if you're listening, you begin to take on your own advice. You take the fish and you spit out the bones when you're listening. But in regards to being free, having the liberty to move on, if
Mhm.
we do in fact follow your lead, Steve, and do that self-reflection, deal with the adjustments, because no one know your truth but you and your creator.
Mhm.
No one know that truth but you and your creator. So you deal with those adjustments, and hopefully those adjustments give you the freedom to fall into a new lane, help you become the better person, the full actual person that you need to be in the lane that you in.
Mhm.
So that's how I'm gonna move in 2024, on not getting stuck, to be able to adjust, being able to adapt,
Yes.
and being able to move on. I'm going to give myself that grace to self-reflect,
Yes.
adjust, and I'm gonna need people in my space to help me adapt, because I'm not that smart. But if I get enough people around me who are, if I stay around Steve and Andre, I'm gonna be good.
It's being able to move on. And brothers, I thank you for taking time out of your schedule.
Oh,
We are
oh,
winding
I
down.
took too much time. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, no. You, no. We're winding down to the last few moments and seconds. But I do appreciate you all for taking time out. Like I said, when we deal with this last portion of this, we need to understand the freedom we have
Mhm.
to move on. And moving on sometimes is not based upon others' decisions about us trying to stay somewhere we don't need to stay.
Mhm.
We need to understand that the light for many of us have already turned green,
Yes.
but we're treating it as if it's a red light.
Mhm.
When you get the green light, when you get the confirmation, when you understand that your worth, your value, and your productivity warrants you to pick up and
Wow.
relocate,
Yeah.
you'll understand that you have the power and the freedom to
Yeah.
move on. Thank you, Coach Stephen Harris and Coach Charlie Taylor. Our Ravens tomorrow, we are praying that they do what they need to do, and Lamar
37.
do what they do. He do.
Yeah, that number.
Thirty-seven.
But thank you, brothers, and thank you for our viewers, and thank you for Miss Lydia Chapman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go Ravens.